For this plate on top, I think we could begin, surprisingly enough, with a cube. Let's try. I'm going to create a cube with Shift-A, and I'll just create a cube here. And if I scale this down and move it into place, I'll move it over up here. What I need to do is get rid of this face down here, as well as this face and this face. So let's hit X and choose faces to delete those. Now if we put this down into place here, I'll go to the side view again. And what we can do is scale this in the Z to get it about the right height, something like this. We can scale it in the X to bring it inside that piece right there. Now if we look at it here, it looks like the piece is fairly thin here and then flares out when it goes under this shield. So what we can do is begin with it fairly narrow like this and move this up to the point where it flares, kind of like that. Now we can also grab these points here and get them in place, maybe right around in here. And I'll also use the B key to select these 2 points and pull them down like that. So now we have kind of the basic structure of that piece. Now we can come back here and select this edge, maybe extrude, pull it back a bit and flare it out in the X, S and X, and flare that out a bit, like that. And then I'll hit E and click and pull that back like that. It looks like we can go ahead and pull this all the way back. There are holes underneath here, but I don't think we're going to need those because when we bake all this into a normal map, we aren't going to get information much deeper than what the holes already are here. So I'm just going to bring this back so it covers all of this back here. Now for the front part, it looks as if it extrudes out in a couple of different ways. So we could probably insert 2 edge loops up here on top, like that. And this would allow us to extrude this piece here. But before we do that, we need to extrude up just a bit more. So perhaps right about here, we can begin extruding forward like this to there. And then we can grab just this one edge and extrude this forward like this. Now, let's see if we can get these side pieces here. Now, they're a little bit different. They begin on the top and then go to just the side, so that's a little bit more complex. Let's insert an edge loop here and insert an edge loop here. And now if we take these edges, here and here, and here and here, and let's extrude these forward, like so. Let's go back to our side view and take a look at them. It looks like these pieces need to be pulled down a bit. So if we go to face mode and select these faces and maybe even these faces, let's pull them down a hair like this. Now also you can see that there's the piece right here that we need to replicate. So I'll come in and move these pieces back out because I think they need to scale out like this so they kind of angle like that. Now we need to try and get all of this into place in the proper shape. Then we can add a solidify modifier to it and give it just a little bit of thickness. So I'll grab these points right up here and move it forward. And what also might help is if we just isolated this piece all on its own. So with this selected in object mode, I can press Shift H, and now we're just seeing this piece on its own, and that helps quite a bit. I'll press Control and click and drag and lasso these points here and bring these down a bit. It looks like I could lasso these as well and bring them down just a smidge, like that. Okay. So now we have the general shape, I think, that we're looking for. It looks as if these points here, however, could come down just a bit, like so. Now with this selected, let's go ahead and add a subdivision surface modifier. And we'll add an extra view. We'll smooth it a bit. And let's see how we're doing. So I think we could add an edge loop up here to tighten this up a bit. I think we could add an edge loop right in here and tighten that up a bit. This curve doesn't look too bad. It looks fairly similar to this curve here. It looks like we could grab this face and move it down a bit, like so. The next thing we need to think about, though, is this hole right here, as well as this indentation up here. So do we have enough faces to do this? For this indentation, I don't think we do. We would need to add 2 edge loops here, like that. And then perhaps we could grab this face here and just extrude that down, like so. Now we could also hit extrude again with that face selected and get a little bit more delineation of that hole there. But it also appears we may need to add an edge loop right in here to kind of hold that curve right there. The next thing we should do is work on this hole, and that's going to be a little bit trickier. Let's go to the side view and the Z key, and let's see where that hole is. So if we tab into edit mode and go to face mode, we can see that we don't really have the edges to deal with that currently. So let's work on that. If I added, say, 2 edge loops right along here, and I'll do the same over on the other side. I'll just insert 2 edge loops and then hit the enter key twice. Now let's go back and take a look here. And if we look at our faces now, we have a couple of faces here that we could use to create that hole. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and use these 2 and these 2. And let's see how that works. I'll hit X and faces. And it looks like the hole kind of curves, so maybe we could grab this as well. Let's delete this face as well. Yeah, I think that's giving us more of the look we want. So now that we have all of this in place, let's go ahead and bring everything else back with Alt and H. And now what we need to do is add some thickness to this. But before we do, it looks like I need to flare these out just a little bit so they don't intersect with this particular cylinder. So once again, I'll tab into edit mode, and I think I'll just grab these faces over here, and let's just flare these out for a moment and see how it works. S and X. Bring those out just a little bit. I'll also grab these edges and bring them out just to flare them out just a little bit like that. Alright, let's go ahead and add a little bit of thickness to this. So I'll come over here, go to add modifier and then solidify. And in here I'll choose even thickness. And let's click and drag and see if we can get any thickness to this like that. I think we could try and increase the views on the modifier, and that will help tighten that up a bit. And there we go. I think that's going to work pretty well. That's giving it some good detail in there and filling in that space. What I'll also do is add a cylinder here up at the front. I haven't cut in this notch, but I think if I just add a cylinder through that, it's going to give it a nice bit of detail. Well, let's go ahead and try that. I think what I should do as well is go ahead and insert an edge loop up here to tighten this just a little bit. And I'll do this over on the other side, like that. And that helps there. Now I'll insert that cylinder into there. You can see it right there. I'll put the cursor right there, insert a cylinder. I'll give it a triangle fan for the caps, rotate it around the Y, scale it down, get it into place, and let's add a subdivision surface modifier and smooth it up a bit. So in the next video, let's move on back here on the top of the gun and work on some of these pieces here.